Welcome to But Frankly Pierce News. I'm Arthur Fairview. Here's what we're facing. Well, the House finally has a new speaker.
Who?
I'm new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
On October 25th, after 3 weeks of being unable to unite behind a speaker after extremists tossed out Kevin McCarthy, the Republican conference coalesced behind Representative Mike Johnson of Louisiana.
No, seriously, who?
Oh, I get it. After struggling to elect a new Speaker of the House, Republicans just gave up and generated one with AI.
Mike Johnson. No one's going to forget that.
There is no way that's a real person.
Maybe after weeks of voting, they all got bored and wrote in the same fake name.
And then they were like, wait, that's a real guy?
That essentially is it in a nutshell. He was obscure enough to avoid scrutiny. However, in addition to receiving the gavel, he is now receiving scrutiny. And now his past has been unearthed.
Unearthed. That sounds ominous.
But seriously, how did what's-his-name become Speaker?
No one knows.
Once a rank-and-file lawmaker who served in the House since 2016, Johnson was welcomed by far-right Republicans who now have a leader with similar views in the top spot in the House.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Johnson asserted that we do not live in a democracy, but in a biblical republic. He told Fox News that to discover his worldview, one simply had to go pick up a Bible off your shelf and read it. That's my worldview.
Ah, so his worldview is based on the Bible. The Copper Age, huh?
The original how-to guide for manipulating and controlling the masses.
Mixing politics and religion again.
This sounds very familiar.
The Bible says a lot of interesting things.
Like you can stone your wife or sell your daughter into slavery.
Well, we ignore those verses.
Well then, friend, it seems to me you pick and choose. Pick and choose. Well, please choose love instead of hate. Besides, your nation was built on separation of church and state. See you later, sinners.
Bye, Jesus. Bye, Jesus. I love you, Jesus.
All joking aside, Johnson is staunchly against abortion rights and gay rights, including same-sex marriage, and says that immigration is the true existential threat to the country. In a 2016 sermon, he warned that the 1960s and 1970s undermined the foundations of religion and morality in the U.S., that attempts to address climate change, for example, are an attempt to destroy capitalism. In 2021, Johnson was a key player in the congressional attempt to overturn the lawful results of the 2020 presidential election. Johnson posted on the site formerly known as Twitter that his home state would work to get the number of abortions to 0.
Kind of makes you miss McCarthy, doesn't it?
McCarthy, I remember. But who is this guy?
And remember my name, America, John Mikeson.
Like other adherents of Christian nationalism, Johnson appears to reject the central premise of democracy, that we have a right to be treated equally before the law.
Sounds like someone else we know.
Yes, it does.
And yes, before you ask, the failed former president and current courtroom sketch model endorsed him. In his rejection of democracy, Johnson echoes authoritarian leaders like Russia's Vladimir Putin and Hungary's Viktor Orban, both of whom have the loyal support of America's far right. Johnson has direct ties to these regimes. His 2018 campaign accepted money from a group of Russian nationals, and he has said he does not support additional funding for Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression.
Houston, we have a problem.
Many Democrats are concerned with his record on restricting access to abortions and are not confident in his ability to work across party lines. Last year, he sponsored a bill that was seen as a national so-called Don't Say Gay bill, inspired by a Florida law that bans education on gender identity and sexual orientation in some elementary school grades. While the bill never went further than being introduced, Johnson called it common sense, saying in a statement, "The Democratic Party and their cultural allies are on a misguided crusade to immerse young children in sexual imagery and radical gender ideology."
They really believe this drivel.
And they spoon feed it to their believers.
You know, it must be nice living in Never Never Land. Maybe I'll come and visit you sometime when I need a break from reality.
After Johnson's election as Speaker, extremist Republican Matt Gaetz of Florida spelled out what it meant for the party.
MAGA is ascendant, and if you don't think that moving from Kevin McCarthy to MAGA Mike Johnson shows the ascendance of this movement and where the power in the Republican Party truly lies, then you're not paying attention. But
as soon as he was elected, we saw a taste of how he handles things. On that same day, there was yet another mass shooting. Residents of Lewiston, Maine spent 2 days sheltering in place as authorities searched for a man suspected of fatally shooting 18 people and wounding 13 others. The shooter was a U.S. Army reservist who was experiencing mental health issues. Due to Maine's weak yellow flag law, he was allowed to keep his weapons. Reporters posed the obvious question to the new speaker, who had this to say outside the speaker's office.
This is a dark time in America. We have a lot of problems, and we're really, really hopeful and prayerful. Prayer is appropriate in a time like this, that the evil can end and this senseless violence can stop. And so that's the statement this morning on behalf of the entire House of Representatives. Everyone wants this to end, and I'll leave it there.
But that's not all. Since the tragedy in Lewiston, Maine, 2 other mass shootings erupted. In Chicago, 15 people were injured at a Halloween party on the city's west side. The suspect, now in custody, was kicked out of the party, then later returned with a gun. In Tampa, Florida, 2 people are dead and 18 injured on Sunday night when people came together in costume at local bars to celebrate.
So, I'm guessing the MAGAts are not going to do anything about this.
That would require them to do something different. And you remember what Einstein said.
Einstein defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again, expecting to get a different result.
Congress's first order of business with their new speaker was to split funding for Israel away from President Biden's request for funding for Ukraine and Israel, as well as the funding for humanitarian assistance for Ukraine, Israel, and Gaza.
Of course they did.
It gets worse.
They now have gone further to push the far right's agenda. The House Republicans' $14.3 billion aid package for Israel claims that it will offset that spending by taking $14.3 billion away from the funding for the IRS passed by Congress in the Inflation Reduction Act. But this offset is nothing of the sort. Funding the IRS brings in significantly more than it costs.
I want that money!
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre released a statement saying the Republicans' politicization of our national security interests is a non-starter, threatening to undermine American national security unless House Republicans can help the wealthy and big corporations cheat on their taxes, which would increase the deficit, is the definition of backwards.
You know what happens when you go backwards? You hit the garbage. That's what happens when you go backwards. You hit the garbage. You see, so everybody remember, you must go forwards. That's the way you have to do things.
Despite what the MAGAts are trying to accomplish with their warped turn-the-clock-back mentality, and progress continues to be made in the pursuit of equality.
It does?
Yes.
I, of course, am skeptical.
No, really. Baseball's Fall Classic is underway, and with that comes the managerial carousel as many teams search for new leadership.
So what's that got to do with equality?
Major League San Francisco Giants coach Alyssa Nakken has been interviewed for the team's open managerial job, becoming the first woman to speak with an organization formally about leading on-field operations, sources confirmed from ESPN.
That would be a big step.
Nakken was the first female full-time coach in Major League Baseball when she was hired in January 2020. As a Major League coach, she has worked with players for the last 4 seasons. And in April 2022, she filled in as a first base coach for a game following an ejection.
Nice.
Nakken's ascent into Major League staff with the Giants has coincided with more women joining Major League staffs, a dozen plus in uniform, including Rachel Balkovec, the manager of the New York Yankees Low A affiliate for the last 2 seasons. At this time, Nakken remains the only female Major League coach. And now we explore the world of the unlikely and bizarre with...
The deuce, you say?
Federal authorities have released more details on unsealed charges in the theft of more than 2 million dimes earlier this year from a tractor trailer that had picked up the coins from the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia.
Did you say dimes?
As in actual coins?
3, 2,
The truck driver was bound for Miami when he pulled into a parking lot to sleep on April 13th. During the night, thieves made off with a portion of its cargo of $750,000 in dimes, a shipment weighing about 6 tons.
That's a lot of dimes.
Prosecutors contend that the theft, which they now say totaled $234,500 in stolen dimes, was part of a spree of robberies from tractor trailers passing through the region that also netted the thieves frozen crab legs, shrimp, meat, beer, and liquor.
Sounds like someone's planning a party.
Detectives say at the time that surveillance video showed 6 men dressed in gray hoodies and armed with bolt cutters, approaching the truck in the middle of the night and breaking into it, then loading the coins into smaller bags and into the waiting truck. The indictment alleges that after the theft, thousands of dimes were converted into cash at coin machines in Maryland or through deposits to at least 4 different suburban Philadelphia banks.
That's $60.
Cool. Cash all right?
Yeah, that's. I'm waiting. So I can't accept that.
It has been 211 days since the failed former president received the first of his 4 indictments. Will justice prevail? Is everyone treated equally under the law? Watch this space. This has been by Frankly Pierce News. Thanks for watching. I'm Arthur Fairview. I really want to know. Oh, I really want to know. Come on, tell me, who are you? You. Who are you?
I don't even know what I'm talking about!